Clyde, I know I was really high on getting back to old school Survivor after episode 1. Episode 2 kind of dimmed that excitement, right? The challenges felt closer to new era challenges. But we're back, baby. Welcome to Survivor Analytics. People are fighting. Jeff has to warn somebody not to choke someone else out. We've got screaming. We have definite bacterial infection from the water. This is Survivor at its finest. We are talking about episode 3 of Survivor Panama / Exile Island. I'm the voice of the people. My name's Jack. With me, as always, the true expert. Say hi, Clyde.
What's up, party people? I actually had the opposite reaction to this episode.
What?
I thought the premiere was strong, episode 2 was better, and in this one, we got a lot more Lamina content, which automatically means that the episode was less entertaining. The Kasaya moments were great. For the opening, I thought you were going to do your best impersonation of Shane yelling on the stump. That was my guess going into it, but I do agree with what you said. We kind of go back to old school Survivor here, especially with the challenge. I'm back home right now, and I watched this episode with my family, and that challenge went on for a while. I was sitting there with my parents and my little sister as people were just throwing each other into the sand for what felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say to your point about entertainment value. This episode sucked from a strategic point of view. From a Survivor Analytics point of view, right? Talking about what makes good strategy, what makes good Survivor. This was not good Survivor. But from a Jack likes seeing people suffer, right? There's that great Billie Eilish line about watching Survivor to see people suffer, and it's a valid line. Hashtag bring back suffering. Get in the comments. Anyway, from that point of view, this was a great episode. But I gotta say, I mean, we'll get to the vote when we get to it. This was where I got disappointed again at the end. But we have a lot of great stuff to talk about before we get there. So should we just jump right in with the return of Bruce?
Yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about as well.
My goodness.
We met one other Bruce back in Survivor 44. And after seeing... And Survivor 45, the double Bruce. This is our third Bruce, a triple Bruce, if you will. And after seeing this, if I have a son, I'm naming him Bruce.
You know, it's not often that we find the episode title this quickly, but I think we just did. It's the triple Bruce. Anyway, this Bruce is a wacky character in the best way. Bruce has apparently taught wilderness survival for 20-something years, high school for 30-something years, karate for 30-something years. We saw him do some karate last week. He comes in to Kasaya and he takes charge. Everyone else is running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and Bruce says, no, you fools, let me guide you. You don't have to boil the water. Just pour it through a t-shirt. That's all you have to do.
Well, it's 3 t-shirts. It's not 1 t-shirt. Come on, he's done 30 years of preparation. He knows every 10 years is another t-shirt.
3 t-shirts, 30, that's fair. This is absolutely nonsense, right? Production has told them they have to boil the water. Apparently, Bruce is on Exile Island not boiling his water, right? Because that was something we saw with Misty in episode 1, is she needed a fire, but couldn't make one. Bruce, I don't think bothers. I think he's just drinking the water straight through, you know. He's holding his t-shirt up over his mouth and then pouring the bottle in and just letting it filter right as he's drinking the water. So we see that. There's immediately some beef between him and Shane that is completely one-sided. Shane does not like that there's another personality on this beach, right? But why would he? Shane doesn't like anything. Anyway.
Well, when it comes to Bruce, what's so interesting about him to me is the fact that he wants that leadership role so badly. And yes. I feel like in this era of Survivor, most contestants are avoiding that title. They don't want to be perceived as the leader because the second something goes wrong, you're the one that takes all the blame and you typically get voted out for it. Bruce walks onto the Kasai Beach and moment 1 says, I'm going to take the leadership role on all of the water filtration system. And initially, I agreed with you and I thought, this is complete BS. No way the t-shirt method actually works. But then I did a little bit of research on my own.
Boy.
This is called cloth filtration, Jack. It's developed in Bangladesh.
No, it wasn't developed. Nobody developed the idea of pouring water through a bad filter. Anyway.
It's not a bad filter if you know how to do it right. And I think Bruce knows how to do it right.
Okay.
So traditionally when you do this, you're pouring water between folded cloth of 4 to 8 layers. So he was wrong in that instance. The preferred cloth that you use can be cotton sarai cloth. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But I want to actually talk about the effectiveness of this. I read a couple studies, mainly Wikipedia, if I'm being completely honest. So you can check my sources on that. But it is effective because most pathogens are attached to different particles in plankton, and the cloth will capture those. It's demonstrated to greatly reduce cholera infection in villages where disinfectants and fuel for boiling are difficult to acquire. And in sub-Saharan Africa, they used 150 micrometer filters to get rid of parasites, and that was 99% effective. So there is some history of this working out.
There is. A couple things to point out. Sari cloth. Like a traditional Indian cloth that you wear, a sari. Okay, here, this is actually pretty interesting. I do have a pretty esoteric rabbit hole that I was going to go down with my honorable mention later on about this.
Also related to the filtration?
Also related, but
is
so I'll
yours
save
the
that.
Indonesian teen?
No, but I do think this is really interesting that filtering to remove microorganisms from water is a Jainist practice. That's really interesting because Jains believe in not harming anything and work very, very hard to reduce their negative impact and violence on the world. And I've never heard of that aspect of it, that they would filter water in that way. So that's pretty cool. I don't think this is where Bruce is coming from. I think he's a little crazy.
No, he's done the research. There's modern examples too. You want to hear a modern example of this working?
Yes.
In 2018, there was an Indonesian teen that was rescued after 49 days adrift at sea in a fishing hut. And during that time, he drank seawater through his clothes as a makeshift filter. It worked out for him, and he survived for nearly 2 months out there. But
And
a lot of people are questioning.
Insane. Don't you go crazy after you drink too much seawater?
Yeah,
That's a
he probably
cartoon
had
thing,
major
at least.
kidney and liver damage over that time.
Well, yeah.
But he made it. He made it the 49 days, thanks to the Bruce method. He probably watched Survivor Panama before going out there.
Anyway, so Bruce is the king of Kasaya. He is giving them all water that definitely still has microbes in it.
He believes he's the king. The other contestants are questioning his methods in confessional, but Bruce hops in confessional and he says, "Now I've emerged at the top of the tribe." So I appreciate that all the Bruces that we've covered have that little bit of delusion in them.
Listen, I do want to give him some credit, though. He is kind of in charge. In the challenge we're about to get to, they all say that morale has skyrocketed with his presence, right? That immediately bites them in the butt, but it is valid, right? They are affirming his interpretation of the world. Anyway, meanwhile, over at Lamina, they're starving. They are crushing up snails, not bothering to take the shells out, boiling them. They catch one edible fish after catching seemingly 1,000 puffer fish, which made me feel bad for all the puffer fish that they're just catching. I always feel bad with catch and release fishing. That seems like a pretty cruel hobby. Do you ever see that?
I thought it would be more cruel if they were actually eating the fish, because the fish survive when they go back in the water, right?
Well, yeah, but then they've got a hook in their mouth or whatever.
I don't know, they could use it as a piercing or something.
Yeah,
a hard rock vibe. I don't know, but maybe it does mess them up and they die soon after. But
imagine you're a fish and all of a sudden you get, let's put it in human equivalent terms. Imagine you were waterboarded, stabbed through the cheek, right? Because waterboarding is the equivalent of being pulled up into the air for a fish.
Okay.
Stabbed through the cheek, dragged up, a giant inspects you and goes, "Wow, look at this. That's a pretty good one. Oh, well." Throws you back in. Are you happy, or are you going to therapy for the rest of your life?
Well, I'm not happy. But I made it, right? That's still something.
That's something.
What, humans have gauges that they wear in their ears. That's kind of similar.
Yeah, but I'm scared of people who do that. So, piercings freak me out, I gotta say. But that's a personal problem. Anyway, Terry catches one fish. Shout out to Terry. And then we go to the challenge. Anything else before the reward challenge?
Only thing I'd throw out is that it feels a bit cruel on production's end because they're the ones actually selecting these campsites. So they probably have a sense of the kinds of fish and wildlife in the surrounding area. They chose the Lamina Beach to be with all these poisonous pufferfish. And I don't know if the contestants themselves knew going on the island that they shouldn't eat these, or production straight up told them, because that's probably the worst case scenario from production's end, is that all of Lamina starts eating these fish, and then you lose half a tribe this early in the season.
I mean, I am sure production told them, right? There's got to be some level of, education they get about what absolutely not to do. So, if you do eat pufferfish, by the way, 10 to 45 minutes after eating the pufferfish, numbness and tingling around the mouth, elevation, nausea, and vomiting. It can continue to paralyze you. You'll pass out, and your lungs will fail. Yeah, don't eat pufferfish. People do it, but you have to. It's one of those fish that has to be very, very specially prepared. All right, reward challenge. This is a massive reward. First off, they are playing for a tarp, a lantern with a kerosene supply, blankets, rope, tanks, jerry cans to carry water in. Am I missing anything? It's a lot.
I think that's all of it. And Lamina's expecting to win the challenge. They've already prepared their shelter with the expectation of getting the tarps on top. So it's a high-pressure challenge for them.
Yeah. So Bruce obviously is declared the savior of Kasaya. The challenge itself, 3 members of each tribe are slingshotting balls across from one platform to another. On the beach, people with slingshots are shooting balls at a platform out in the water where people have to jump and try to catch the balls. And every ball you catch is a point. It's a classic old school Survivor challenge. There's a scoreboard. People take turns. It is simple, right? It is literally just catch the ball. Now, I love a giant slingshot challenge. Have I told you my giant slingshot experience?
I don't think so.
So, these giant slingshots, you can buy these on Amazon. No big deal. My friends and I bought one in high school after reading an Amazon review where someone had used one to shoot a paintball grenade through a car door.
Okay.
And we were like, we got to get one of those. So we got one, and we would use it to shoot water balloons at one another. And these water balloons would truly damage you. I once had a bruise that was easily the size of like a computer mouse on my leg.
Man.
Oh yeah, for like 2 weeks. But
what was the game here? Would one person just stand out in front and the others would just hit them with the slingshot, or was it some kind of game mechanic with it?
Yeah,
it was just straight up torture.
Well, you weren't right in front of it. You'd go out like 30 feet. Like, you would go out a ways. This was not like close up. This was more of a William Tell, like, can the shooter actually make the shot kind of thing.
Okay.
Anyway, so I love a slingshot challenge on Survivor, with the exception, obviously, of Carolyn's shrieking. But
I completely forgot about that one. I'm so happy you brought that up.
Very slow challenge. Suri shows out, which I was glad to see. Obviously, I am on Suri watch, waiting to see when she will really etch her name into the annals of history. But Lamina ends up winning on Shane's missed catch. And Lamina gets to go to reward, or gets to have the reward. And they get to also exile somebody from Kasaya. Accordingly, they send Bruce. He's the morale center.
Yeah.
Do you like this? Is this a good play?
It makes sense, given what Kasaya told them before the challenge. I just feel bad for Bruce. He mentioned this on Exile, but he spends 4 of the first 8 days on Survivor on Exile Island. And he's such a fun character. And I think that when you're sent away on Exile, it's just difficult for the show to really highlight you. You're more invisible in the edit. And I would way rather see someone like a Nick or an Austin or a Sally, kind of these more boring characters, spend their time on Exile, so I could see Bruce spend more time at Kasaya and rub Shane the wrong way so the two of them can start butting heads a bit more.
Now, it's worth noting that at this stage in this season, we have 3 tiers of character. We have character.
Yeah, who's in the character tier? Who would you put there?
In the character tier, we have Bruce, we have Cirie, we have Shane, we have
Courtney,
we have Aris. Then we have attendance. That's everybody who speaks.
Okay, like a Terry, a Dan,
an Austin,
a Misty.
Like, Misty's in character. I'll give Misty character.
Really?
She goes to exile.
Yeah.
But then there's a third tier. And that third tier is Ruth Marie and Bobby. Because I didn't know Ruth Marie was on this season until her name comes up at the end of this episode.
I forgot that she was there. The whole
I didn't
conversation
know Bobby was either.
Like, the whole conversation at the Lamina camp later in the episode is that you have Nick and Austin playing the middle between these two pairs. So the whole strategic conversation is presented as a 6-person tribe. Yeah. When in reality, there's a 7th person. Ruth Marie is hanging out, but we just know nothing about her.
Absolutely nothing about her. Anyway, so there's a few tiers of character here, and it is a shame that Bruce goes to exile again, and he finds nothing, and he gets no opportunity because of the storm. So, exile really isn't that compelling. All we're seeing on exile is suffering, right? You made it very clear to me, flashbacks will not be happening in this season. And so, all we see of him is a night vision shot of him curled up from the storm, trying to stay dry and make it through the night. So, whatever.
I think that's just an inherent flaw with the Exile Island twist. At least now there's some entertainment value with that gimmick in that there's this hope that Bruce could find the idol. But we saw in Cook Islands, the second that Yule found the idol on Exile, every visit afterwards didn't have a lot to really showcase. The only real entertaining thing that we got from future Exile Island visits was Candace being sent over and over again. Maybe we'll see something similar like that here. On the topic of your tier list, I can tell you that right now, Bobby and Ruth Marie are at the bottom of this cast in terms of total confessionals. Bobby is at 3, Ruth Marie is at 2, and Shane is at 11.
Sorry, Ruth Marie is at what?
2 total confessionals through the first 3 episodes.
And you know what? Don't remember them either.
I can't tell you what they were either.
But speaking of Shane, after the challenge, we get back to Kasaya, and we have a lot of different dynamics going on here. Shane declares a log to be his thinking seat. Then he just starts screaming about how it's only his, and no one is allowed to sit on it. It is deranged behavior.
It's absurd.
Like, if somebody started doing this on the street, you would cross the street, right? It is not normal human behavior. He screams so much. And then Courtney and I think Missile Silo. Is that right? No. Courtney and...
is it Cirie?
Maybe it's Danielle?
Yeah, probably Danielle.
Danielle, who's another member of the bottom tier of this character list, because I did just have to go find her name. They are trying to get the pot off of the fire, right? They ask him for help. Hey, the sticks aren't really working. This thing's really hot. How do we get this off here? And he comes over and immediately starts a fight. It is so incredibly rude. I felt uncomfortable watching him. It felt like some Jean Robert antics from Samoa.
I don't think it's the same level as Jean Robert in China, because Jean Robert was creepy with some of the girls on that cast. I don't think Shane is creepy when it comes to Courtney and Danielle.
Yeah.
He's more antagonistic than anything else.
Yeah, this is just so rude that I'm bucketing all appalling, overconfident men in one bucket, and I'm fine with that.
The stump segment with Shane, though, is one of my favorites from the pre-merge, because I love that it starts off as this lighthearted comedic banter between the members of Kasaya, and then next thing you know, he starts taking it very seriously, and he's just screaming at them, "Come on, I just want mine!"
It's insane. It is not normal behavior, and to be honest, I wish we could watch him spin out more, because...
Well, there's still a chance. Because someone could sit in that thinking stump, and I just cannot imagine how he's going to react if that happens. If Courtney sits on that stump, it's going to be nuclear warfare over there. She should.
Yeah, she should start a fight, because she's not, like, She's the victim in this for no reason, right?
Well, I don't think Courtney's completely blameless in this entire situation.
All she does is say, "Can you give me a hand?"
So, because I get it from both point of views. Courtney asks Shane for help, and Shane says, "I delegated this task to you. Do you want me to do it?" And she's like, "Yes, I want you to take over. I want you to take care of the fire." And then he starts doing it, and then she gets back involved, and she's trying to take the control of the operation over again. So I think I understand why he's annoyed with her. He obviously doesn't handle it well, but I feel like that's a personal pet peeve of mine too, where if someone asks me to do something, I'm down to do it, but it's like we can't have too many chefs in the kitchen at the same time.
This guy's a Shane apologist, ladies and gentlemen. I can't excuse it. Here's my question for you. It's a theory. I'm very conscious after last week of Shane's tattoos. He has a tattoo of the word Boston over his heart.
Oh.
Is Shane Boston Rob?
No.
Is this why he's called Boston Rob? Is because Shane has a Boston tattoo, and then he robs somebody of something.
Oh, I love that theory.
Like, I've never seen Boston Rob. I don't know who he is. I think he might be Shane.
Yet maybe I've been saying it the wrong way this whole time, and it's actually Boston robbed. And Shane's going to just pickpocket someone this season.
Yeah.
Someone's going to find the idol, and Shane's going to take it right out of their hands.
Is he from Boston, though? Him.
I don't remember him being from Boston. I know Danielle is from Boston.
It's just the word Boston in all caps, and it looks like Times New Roman.
So Shane's hometown, according to the Survivor Wiki, is Los Angeles, which makes sense. We talked last week about how he's involved in a bunch of music production. So maybe that's Boston like the band, not Boston the city.
That would be crazy. That's crazier than getting a tattoo of the word Boston. Is having to go, no, it's Boston the band. Is there a band called Boston?
They have More Than a Feeling is their big song, right? Am I wrong on that?
I've never heard of this band, but you are right that they have a song called More Than a Feeling.
Yeah, I know my classic rock.
I was thinking of Chicago, the band.
You could probably do that for every major city and you'll find a band for them.
I've never heard of this. Well, somebody's going to get mad at me for this. I've never heard of Boston, the band. Their album art, when you Google them, is crazy.
You've definitely heard More Than a Feeling before. It's one of those songs that they play in Target when you walk through now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, so then...
Well, when it comes to Kasaya, though, we clearly see this alliance falling apart. Last week, there was that core four that came together. It's Shane, Courtney, Danielle, Aris. And 24 hours later, they're at each other's throats. But at this point in Survivor history, contestants value their word a lot more. Shane says in confessional that he swore on his son's life that he would stick by these people. So how do you see this playing out long term? Do you think this group will actually stay loyal to each other, or is it just a matter of time?
It's a matter of time. Shane is a deranged lunatic. He is not sticking to his vow. He probably doesn't even remember making it. Like,
what?
No. Come on. No, it's going to fall apart. I think if this tribe had gone... Ooh, sorry, there's a thunderstorm here, and I've seen 2 bolts of lightning out my window, which is kind of crazy. So...
Yeah, that's God telling you to stop discounting Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have Bruce, the Messiah of the Kasaya tribe, and you have Shane, the disciple.
Oh my God. Shane is the John the Baptist for Bruce. So... I think if this tribe had gone to tribal this episode, things would have fallen apart for them. I think they're that unstable, right? I think Shane could have gone home this week just from his little tiff there, right? That's enough. In old era Survivor, a little personal offense like that, the stuff that has been sandpapered out of modern Survivor, these personality chafes that really don't show up anymore. That's the stuff that sends you home in week 1, week 2, up to 5, right? So, yeah. Do you want to talk about Lamina really quick with Misty and Sally's move here?
Can I just throw one more thing out about Shane? Because I'm the pro Shane guy here.
Yeah.
Here's an argument for keeping Shane. Because I know he's going to blow up at camp. He's going to make everybody hate each other. But I do think he's a little bit predictable strategically. Last week, he straight up told the people on the bottom, Melinda, you're going home, and Suri, you're going out right after. Like, for all of his craziness, he's a very traditional strategic player. You don't need to worry about Shane flipping. So he's a valuable ally that I'm pretty sure most people could beat in the end. I'd say out of everyone on this cast, I have the least confidence in Shane winning a jury vote. So I don't know if people are thinking about it that way because it's old school Survivor, but there are reasons to keep him around. So
I don't think people are thinking about anything. It's old school Survivor. Everybody's happy to be there.
Yeah. Okay, what's going on at Lamina?
I mean, it's really quick. Misty and Sally are trying to convince the younger men to join their alliance, and Misty is using her missile engineer wiles to trick the men by flirting with them, giving them really good massages, just overall kind of trying to Parvati her way into their hearts. It doesn't work, but it was fun to see. Like, I like where her head is at. I think she made the best possible play she could here.
I was actually going to bring up that comparison between Misty and Parvati, because Parvati competes in the season immediately after this, and Parvati is invited back on season 16 Survivor Micronesia. And spoiler, Misty never comes back to Survivor. And I genuinely wonder if the roles were flipped and Misty competed on Cook Islands and Parvati competed on Panama, would Misty be the one returning in the future? Because she is a solid player. I'll talk about her more once we get to her actual boot, but I feel like out of the people we've seen on this cast, she's one of the contestants that's at least more willing to make a strategic move compared to, the Ruth Maries of the world.
Sorry, I Googled Misty while you were talking, and there is an Instagram, but it cannot possibly be her.
I checked too. She's basically off the grid at this point.
Good for her. Good for her. That's the way to be. Anyway.
Oh, there's also an animal shot at Lamina. I'm surprised you missed this.
Which one?
There's a crab along the ocean line, which clearly represents Nick and Austin playing the middle between the ocean and the land. They're in the middle between the young women, Misty, Sally, and the older men, Dan and Terry. They won't
Lightning
need to make that.
Struck as you said that, so it's true.
Yeah, there you go.
I do have an animal shot later in the episode, but anyway.
Okay.
Challenge?
We can go to immunity. Yeah.
All right. Immunity challenge. Just a nice little moment. Bruce comes back from exile and gives Jeff a little bow of respect when he returns to his tribe, which I thought was nice. Oh boy. This is old school Survivor right here.
Yeah.
5 circles. Each circle in the beach has a bag buried within it. That bag filled with rocks or something. Each round, a assortment of players from each tribe will have to fight to dig up the bag, bring it back, and while carrying the bag, get their hand on a little patch of their tribe's color, purple or orange. First one to touch the patch while holding the bag wins the round. Playing to best of 5. This is physical. This is knockdown, drag out wrestling. And I wish that, obviously time is precious on old school Survivor in terms of the edit, but I wish they had taken a moment to tell us the rules of engagement they had given the players. Because I gotta be honest, I was expecting Shane to take a swing at somebody. I was expecting there to be like one bite, right? The most physical moment we see is Misty fully chokes somebody out. And Jeff has to warn her.
Misty chokes Aris. Aris calls her out on it. He says, "Stop choking me." And Jeff has to warn her.
And so, but we get quite a few rounds here. There's all kinds of stuff happening. And there's very different tactics in different rounds. A couple great moments to note. At one point, Cerise sits on Sally and fully pins her to the ground and then ends up winning that round. It was fantastic. With the men in the first men's round of 2 men from each tribe, the fighting starts immediately. They start fighting before they get to the bag. At one point, I think it's in the third round, Shane fully tackles Dan 20 feet from the circle they should be fighting over. Right? Yeah. People are just working their aggression out, completely unrelated to the challenge.
Well, by the later rounds, they're not even bothering digging for the bag anymore. They realize that like the match really starts once the bag comes out from the ground, and then they can start fighting each other. I think Bruce is just standing there watching over, figuring out who he's going to take down next.
Yeah, there's some interesting defensive moves. There's a round where I think there's 6 people, 3 from each tribe, and they all basically, instead of running out to the circle, they all just walk out and are sort of strolling and watching each other, right? The final round I do want to highlight because we get this essentially fast break that Bobby takes control of. And I didn't write down who it was. It might be Sally.
It's Ruth Marie.
It's Ruth Marie? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So we'll say it's Ruth Marie. Ruth Marie gets the bag, starts running for the end, right? Trying to recover because I think it's the 4th round. It might be the 5th.
It's the 5th round. It's tied 2-2. The winner of that round is immune that week, and the other tribe will go to tribal council. And Ruth Marie has a clear shot at the Lamina section of the challenge.
And she doesn't have a whole lot of hustle. I feel like that's worth saying. Because Bobby is able to catch up to her in just sort of a trot, right? He's not running full out. He's just kind of like catching up, grabs the back of her shirt, slows her down even more, kind of pulls her over to his side, and taps the mat and wins. Not much resistance from her. She kind of gave up.
You think she gave up? I think Ruth Marie's just not the strongest physical competitor.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. But, like, he just sort of walks her over like she's a toddler who wasn't supposed to get into the frozen yogurt.
I thought it was more like a claw machine as he moved Ruth Marie over to the right side.
Yeah, same diff, right? Like, she is not handling it. She's being handled.
It was a great play from Bobby, though, because as I was watching this, I thought I remembered the boot order of this season, and I was thinking, I'm pretty sure this is where Misty goes out. And when Ruth Marie had that clear shot to the end, I was starting to question myself. And Bobby wasn't putting in that hustle, but he knew from the very beginning that was his tactic. So I respect it. I'll give a quick shout out to Shane. Every great team needs a great cheerleader, and Shane fulfills that role. He's yelling at Aris during the challenge, "Bring me the bag!"
Yeah, I do like to hate on Shane because he is insane. But you know what? There's a good energy there. He's a nut job. He really is.
It's a good source for all of his craziness, is this kind of challenge. This is Shane in his optimal element.
Yeah.
Aris also pulls out some interesting yoga instructor moves. He massages someone's calf, I think, to cause them to release a bag at one point. So I think he knows the different pressure
points?
So
I missed that.
It was a fun moment from him, but Lamina's going to go to tribal council for the first time this season.
And you know what that means? It's an animal shot. That's right. It's actually a 2-parter, and I like this one a lot. It's a green tree snake, a Panamanian green tree snake that first shows up just kind of weaving through branches as we see the discussion of the options, right? Obviously, this is the flatbread snake. We all know that. Let me just confirm that it is, in fact, the flatbread snake. Yes, it is the flatbread snake.
How do you find that information? Do you do like a screenshot and then a Google image search?
I Google Panamanian green snake. Maybe it's a parrot snake, actually. We're going to say it's a parrot snake because the hiss is the second piece. So, because first we see some early discussion. I got to be honest. I was expecting this to come down to Sally. I thought Sally was a clear target for a lot of the people on this beach, right, after the spear incident. Nope. Nobody talks about her after they were all so frustrated about her mistakes earlier in the episode. So we see the tree snake weaving, looking for a target, and then it goes and it blares out, and the parrot snake finds its meat, finds its options. Misty or Ruth Marie. The older men want to go after Misty. The younger women want to take out Ruth Marie. Austin and Nick, sitting in the middle, have the agency to make this call. I think Misty's a very clear target, right? She was sent to exile. She might have an idol, although nobody talks about it. She did make that big bluff.
Yeah.
I think she's a good target for the older men. For the younger women, do you like Ruth Marie as a target as they're trying to sell the younger men?
No, I don't get it at all. I feel like they should go for the older guys in this situation because their whole rationale for targeting Ruth Marie is we need to keep the tribe strong. We need to focus on physical strength. So once Ruth Marie is gone, who are they going to look at next? It'll be either Dan or one of the two younger women. And I just feel like that's risky territory. Plus, Ruth Marie's a number that would probably be willing to work with them. I don't know. We see nothing from Ruth Marie. Yeah. So I think they should have tried to go for the older guys in this situation. But I'm not sure if they were fully aware of all of the dynamics at play.
Yeah.
So.
And again, old era Survivor, there's 40 minutes of television here. It's hard to know who knows what. Do you want to go to tribal?
I'll just talk a bit about the idol because I think that's a huge part of this equation that isn't brought up in the entire episode. And I don't know if Austin and Nick did this intentionally. I don't think they did. Their final decision at the end of this episode is that they're going to put their votes on Misty while the young women put their votes on Ruth Marie. And from a strategic perspective, that is the optimal outcome for them because you either take out Misty and then you're officially locked in with the older guys, or if Misty has the idol, then you're taking out Ruth Marie, who isn't really aligned with anybody anyway. So I feel like even in that situation, those two guys can continue to operate the middle moving forward. I just wish they talked a bit more about it because that's the one interesting game mechanic that we have right now in this season, and it's completely neglected.
Yeah. So we go to tribal, and I think there's a couple things to note. And the reason I say that is I wrote down 2 lines.
Okay, I have 1 line.
Okay, well, what's your 1 line?
My 1 line is that Jeff tries to bring up the single interesting thing about this tribe, which is that Sally lost the spear. Jeff is trying to make these people go after each other and say something bad about one another. He says, wait, so what happened with that spear exactly? And everyone's giving non-answers. I think it's Austin says that, we just don't have that spear anymore. So
yeah,
Jeff is doing his best to make this tribal council interesting, and with Lamina, there's just no escaping the boredom of this tribe.
My first line is complementary to that, which is this tribe is much more coherent than Kasaya. They're not more interesting. They're not better, but they're more coherent, right? There are clearly dynamics at play. There's a game being played. But this is a tribe who want to stick together. There's an emphasis in the tribal on closeness. This tribe really thought they could do it. They really want to do it as much as possible. Alliances are forming, but they're all still on good terms, right? Where Kasaya seems to be devolving very, very quickly, right? That's note number 1 that I have.
Yeah, I agree. Kasaya feels like a group of individuals that are forced to work with each other, and the big theme throughout this tribal council for Lamina is that a lot of people are voting more for the group than for themselves.
Yeah. So that's note number 1. Note number 2, Ruth Marie feels alone, and she should. She has never spoken before this tribal council. I gotta be honest, there was a chance she goes home and this whole episode was just a waste. There was no development, right? At some point this season, unless she has a shocking turn, right? And reveals
Genevieve-esque turn for Ruth Marie.
Yeah, unless she reveals, hey, I have this master plan. I am, deeply entrenched in secret alliances with all these people, right? We're going back to, who did I have the puppet theory about a few seasons ago? Many seasons ago now.
That was a while ago.
Was that Denise? No.
Was that Denise out of all people? I know Chef Brett was another contestant.
It was Shambo.
It was Shambo in the first season. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this theory, if you're a newer listener, that Shambo was orchestrating everything in Samoa and that we were going to find out that she was a secret genius. Maybe Ruth Marie turns out to be this tactical mastermind who is choosing all the worst times to have conversation so the cameras aren't there, right? But maybe at some point in the next month, I'm going to waste an hour of my life, 2 hours, watching an episode where she goes home and we don't know anything about her. That could be next week.
It could.
Yeah. But that's all I have at Tribal, so.
Yeah, your final vote here, it's a 5-2, 5 votes on Misty, 2 on Ruth Marie. The only votes against Ruth Marie are Misty and Sally. I mentioned this earlier, Misty does not come back to Survivor, which is a real shame because I feel like she was one of the more strategically aware contestants on this cast. She had the idea of lying about the idol. She's willing to flirt with the men of Lamina to try to gain some favor with them and improve her positioning, but it doesn't work out that way, which is a real shame. I feel like this season would have benefited from flipping Misty and one of the disastrous people from Kasaya. Because I think Kasaya could use a couple more strategically oriented people, and Lamina desperately needs some better characters. So,
swap Misty and Courtney and see what happens, right?
Yeah, that'd have been a great one. Update with Misty today. She is currently the vice president of the Naval Shipyard Missiles at Raytheon.
Oh my God. No wonder she has no social media.
Yeah, she's pretty busy being Misty the missile expert.
Yeah, she's probably busy. Oof.
And I can also tell you that out of the 16 people on this cast, 4 of them come back in the future. So you already know one of them just based on Survivor 50. So it's really a matter of figuring out the other 3.
We have 4 returnees. I know one is Suri. Shane is obviously coming back. I don't know the rest. Well, I mean, maybe Bruce, maybe, I don't know. But I'm sad to see Misty go. I am. There's not a lot of personality on this island yet that I enjoy watching from a strategic point of view. I like Terry and Dan. I like Suri, but we haven't seen a ton of strategic play from her yet.
I was going to say, when it comes to Suri's strategic play, it's a lot of her just surviving through these first 3 episodes.
Yes.
She was on the bottom of the original women's tribe, and she had to do whatever she needed to flip the vote onto Tina. She was on the bottom of the Kasaya tribe. So even though Suri's a good strategic player, it's not like she's been running the game. She's been doing what she can to just get by round to round.
Right. Suri, for me, what I like about her so far is that she sat on somebody. That was very funny. And her comment in the first episode about why am I on the older women tribe? Like, that's it. Those 2 moments were so delightful. And I know she's coming back and that I need to like her, right? But
well, she also has some fire fits. She wore an all-pink outfit in the immunity challenge this episode. Everyone else is wearing swimwear. Suri rolls up with all pink. It looks like a child's onesie.
Yes. Like, I'm excited to see her find her path through the chaos of Kasaya.
That's fair. And I can tell you that Suri actually competed on the show Big Brother last summer in 2024.
Okay.
And that's a show where everything they do, all the strategic conversations, they're aired live. You can watch them on the CBS Paramount Plus app. And there were certain clips that went viral, and one of them that was really big was Suri talking to some of the other players where she said, yeah, the people in this house are a lot to handle, but I was on a tribe with Shane and Courtney. I can handle anything at this point. So it's crazy that 12, 13, more than that, that was 2024, 18 years after being on Kasaya, Suri still has flashbacks to that group.
That's great. That's really great. Winners and losers?
Yeah, where do you want to start?
Let's do winners.
Winner, I'm going to give it to Nick on the Lamina tribe. He's operating the middle of that group with Austin. They knock out they knock out Misty, eliminate the potential of an idol in that tribe, and now they're officially aligned with the older men. Nick feels like he's in a really safe spot, and he's a good challenge competitor, which that tribe cares about. I don't see him going home anytime soon.
Yeah, fair enough. I gave mine to Dan for comparable reasons. His alliance is firmed up, but what I like about Dan is he's in a very comfortable spot. He has a lot of cushion around him, right? Terry's a bigger name. Austin's a bigger name. Nick's a bigger name. So he's strongly in this alliance without having to worry about threats coming at him first. So I appreciate that level of security.
Man, good for Dan the astronaut. I think he got your winner last week, too. The back-to-back
And he's an
for
astronaut.
Dan.
how can I not root for an astronaut? But who's your loser?
Loser will go to Sally.
Yeah,
lost her number one ally in Misty. So she's just in a really difficult spot. And if Lamina goes to Tribal next week, the conversation will be, do we knock out Sally or do we knock out Ruth Marie? I will say the one positive with Sally's game is that she did describe herself as being buddy-buddy with the guys. They didn't seem to really buy into Misty's flirtatious approach. So maybe they'll, still favor Sally in the fact that she's willing to be buds with them.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to keep an eye on it. She's also my loser. I think it's going to be really hard for her to overcome the spearfishing thing. If the hunger continues to progress, and I think in the next time on, we see something about if this goes on much longer, I don't think we'll be able to get out of bed, right?
Yeah.
If the hunger keeps getting worse, she is the scapegoat for that. So, something to keep an eye on.
And it's crazy that she didn't go home this week instead of Misty. You would think if the guys were going to align with the old men, they would take out the person that ruined their food supply. But I guess Misty was just seen as too big of a threat. Quick dishonorable mention to water filtration system bias. I thought that Bruce was crazy when he talked about putting the water through 3 t-shirts, and I was completely wrong on that. So my apologies to Bruce.
Well, my honorable mention goes to the miasma theory or miasmic theory. Do you know what this is? You're a medical person. So miasma is the theory that predates the germ theory of disease, right? It was the concept that bad air gets you sick. And for 2,000 years, this was kind of the predominant prevailing theory around what got you sick. Doctors would say, oh, you need better air, right? Go out to the country, have more ventilation. That's why plague doctors would wear the beak, is because the beak would catch the bad air, right? This is obviously bullshit, right? There is no founding in any of that for reality. Unfortunately, some people are believing it again because 2025 is insane. But the point here is that there were these theories that, as long as you had good ventilation, you wouldn't get sick, right? That's what matters. Clean, fresh air. And you know what? 3 t-shirts is not going to give you clean, fresh water. No matter what Bruce says, no matter what Wikipedia says, no matter what Indonesian teenager survives in the middle of the ocean, you need at least 4 t-shirts. Everybody knows that.
Everybody knows, yeah.
To filter out the miasma, but I was just reading about miasmic theory this week. It's actually where the name for malaria comes from. Because malaria, as we all know, malaria is a mosquito-borne disease that you get through your blood and gives you a fever and all of that. But the name malaria comes from the Italian mal area, bad air, which is the same as a miasma. So people thought you got malaria by breathing bad air and didn't question the bug bites covering them that gave them a fever. So, kind of interesting.
That is really interesting. I will say, Kasaya doesn't buy into Bruce's theory that much either. When he's sent away to exile, they're shown boiling their water back at camp. So
that's
the second Bruce is out of the equation.
Yeah. So, good stuff. But next time, Lamina is really weak, and we see Shane screaming some more. So, buckle up.